Hello everyone, my name is Elena Grishina. I am a leading researcher in Russian Presidential Academy of National Economy and Public Administration in Moscow. I want to present you the results of our research, Subjective Poverty and Material Deprivation in Russia, Armenia and Georgia. The aim of the research was to analyze the economic conditions, subjective poverty, and material deprivation among the population of three former USSR states, Russia, Armenia, and Georgia. The data on Armenia and Georgia was retrieved from Caucasus Barometer conducted in 2017 by Caucasus Research Centers. The source of the Russian data is the regular National Representative Survey Persons Family Society, conducted in 2017 by RANEPA. The data is representative nationwide. We use statistical package for the social science to analyze the household's economic conditions based on the self-reported ability to buy food, clothes, and durable goods, incidence of borrowing money to buy food, subjective assessment of household standing compared with other households in the country, and availability of different sources of income. The data is analyzed on the country level and on the different segments of the population. The analysis shows that the share of extremely poor persons living in the households that don't have enough money even to buy food is only 3% in Russia compared with over 20% in Armenia and Georgia. 25% of households in Russia can afford to buy food but not clothes. In Armenia and Georgia, the share of such households is higher. In all the three countries, rural areas have a larger share of persons living in a household that can afford food but not clothes. Respondents in Armenia and Georgia who live in a childless household more frequently reported that they didn't have enough money to buy food. In Russia, the factor of children didn't make any difference. In Armenia and Russia, multi-child households are experiencing more serious material deprivation than households with one child. In all the three countries, people aged 65 and above are more likely to report that they only have enough money to buy food, and even that can be a problem. Notably, that is the case with slightly over a third of respondents in Russia living in households made of persons aged 65 plus, but in Armenia and Georgia this figure rises to more than 70%. Scarcity of money among the population of the conceded countries translates into a third of respondents and more living in households that have borrowed money to buy food. Rural populations are more likely to borrow money for food than urban residents. In Russia and Armenia, households with children are more likely to have to borrow money for food. In all the three countries, borrowing money for food is the highest among the multi-child households. In Russia, households with elderly persons are slightly less likely to borrow money for food. Speaking of the relative economic situation of their households, more than 20% of respondents in Russia said it's the lowest, whereas in Armenia and Georgia the share of such respondents was about 10%. Analyzing the share of respondents who evaluate their household's economic situation the lowest, we can observe that in rural area of Russia and Armenia, this is higher than in the cities. But this is not true for Georgia. Households with 3 children and more from Russia and Armenia are more likely to say that their economic situation is the worst. But in Georgia, the level of relative subjective poverty is practically the same in the household with different number of children. The level of relative subjective poverty among the household in Armenia, Russia, and Georgia, consisting of persons aged 65 and above, is slightly higher compared with the persons with no member of that age. Differences in household economic conditions in the reviewed countries may be explained by their income composition. Employment plays a more substantial part as an income source for households in Russia compared with Armenia and Georgia. By contrast, in Armenia and Georgia, the share of respondents who named the farming as a source of income was twice as high, and the share of those who take money from their relatives was more than twice as high as in Russia. Rural households are more likely to have income from farming and less likely to have employment income. In Russia and Georgia, rural households are more likely to have pensions and social benefits. In Armenia and Georgia, the share of urban households that receive financial aid from their relatives is higher than among rural households. Households with 3 children and more are more likely to have pension, social benefit, and farming as a source of the income. In all considered countries, households with 2 or more persons aged 18 to 64 are more likely to have employment income and less likely to receive pensions and social benefit. Besides, in Armenia and Georgia, such households are more likely to have farming income and less likely to take money from relatives. In Armenia and Georgia, households consisting of persons aged 65 and above are more likely to receive financial aid from their relatives than households which doesn't have third-age members. Our study shows that although the level of material deprivation in Russia is significantly low, the level of relative subjective poverty in Russia is notably higher. This can be explained by the fact that self-evaluation is formed in comparison with the position of the reference group. Inequality in Russia is higher, and the population compares their financial situation with high-income groups. The data from the Human Development Report shows that the negative attitude to inequality is significantly higher in Russia than in Armenia and Georgia. The high level of relative subjective poverty in Russia may also point at the risk of social instability and insufficient social mobility. The share of expenditures on health, education, and social assistance in Russia is relatively low. Only 1/3 of Russians is satisfied with health care quality, and half of the Russian citizens is satisfied with the education quality. The share of people feeling safe and satisfied with their freedom to choose in Russia is lower than in Armenia and Georgia. This indicates the need for new government policies in Russia that would focus on social development and reduction of social inequality and exclusion. Development of effective protection policies, greater spending on health and education, ensuring access to services, enhancement of voluntary section, and community participation in local projects will contribute to social inclusion. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.